So this spring, I was using ChatGPT to help me get all of my gear in line for my spring bear hunt. I have it all down on a list of everything that I need to have in my pack for the amount of time that we're going to be spending out there. And I thought it was hilarious because ChatGPT or in the AIs talk you up. It was like, you know what, Sam? You don't have just a bunch of random assorted hunting gear. You've got a system. And I was like, you know what? You're fucking right, chat. I do have a system. Well, anyway, that leads me to the programming discussion I would like to have today, which is what exactly is the best method for getting stronger, specifically for people, ones that I work with, which is the dedicated recreational lifter, who is typically a little bit more busy of a person. I hate to say busy adult or busy professional because, again, that's some AI nonsense. But the type of guy that runs a business, has a full-time job, who has a family to support, who has extracurricular activities that he loves, but he wants to get strong to support that along the way. So what does that journey actually look like for him? The problem with looking things up on the internet is he's just going to find a program to do. So again, you look up strength training programs and there's a million things. We could obviously start with starting strength. There is 5x5, there's Mad Cow, there's Texas Method, there's an assorted number of templates that you can get online. You can buy all sorts of books, you can have ChatGPT write you a plan, any number of things. But what does that journey actually look like? What is optimal and what is the way that I specifically take my clients through their first 6, 12, 18, 2 years of training? And that's what I want to discuss with you today, how that specific system works. So the thing that needs to happen, mostly because we value our time and our effort, we want our strength progress also to be measurable. So we want to actually see, since you have so much going on in your life, one of the core principles of strength training needs to be doing things efficiently. So we don't want our strength progress over time. Now, in that, we also want our training plan to be adaptable. Again, if you've got kids, you've got a business, you've got all sorts of stuff going on in life, you need to be able to adapt your training plan around your life as you go. You need to be able to make this a sustainable structure. Again, you have to have a framework in place for your training that you can progress through many stages of training advancement, and it's something that you can stick to for years at a time. Because really, let's be honest here, you can make some great gains in under a year or two, but the good stuff happens in years 2, 3, 4, 5 to 10 plus. So the goal there, we need to have a plan that is efficient, that's measurable, so you can see progress over time, even though it's going to get slower, and something that you can lock in and do for a long period of time. Now, you can see back behind me, I have a barbell gym here. And again, we use barbells specifically because they are the most efficient way to get strong. And again, if you're all about being efficient with your time, you're going to want to get good with barbell training. So we choose some random exercises. They're not really random at all. We choose some exercises: the squat, the bench, the deadlift, the overhead press, chins and rows and power cleans and some other stuff there along the line. And it's not because we want to be fat pink power lifters. It's because those are the most efficient ways to get strong. We're able to incrementally load those for a long period of time. You can add a little bit of weight to your deadlift for a decade. Can you do that on the leg extension? No. Can you add a little bit of weight to your bicep curls for 10 years? No. But you can do that with the barbell. So then it comes back to that measurable outlook. So again, in the realm of consistency and being able to measure your strength progress, these efficient exercises are what you're going to do, which leads you into the beginning part of your training. First things first is learning the lifts. This is by far the most important part of your training system. Learning how to lift efficiently in a way that utilizes the most muscle mass, longest effective range of motion so you can lift the most weight. Specifically, learning how to low bar squat as long as you can get it on your back that way. Again, that's going to allow us to use your hips in the squat more so than your knee extensors. So again, you're utilizing more muscle mass. Learning how to do that properly from the get-go with the empty bar sets the stage for the rest of your training. And same thing with deadlifts, same things with press, same things with bench press. You have to get the foundation there so when you start to add weight over time, you know that your form is consistent, it's repeatable, and you're doing things properly. I do consults with prospective clients, or maybe I'm just taking a look at their programming. And what I see the most often is a ton of questions on everything except their form. Even people that say they have good form, you watch their videos and they're not even close. So you have to be checking that. If you have been lifting and you're not making steady progress, you're stalled out on your squat or your deadlift or your bench, but you think your form is good, you have to get that checked to make sure that that isn't a variable. And you have to, if it is a problem, be willing to hurt your ego and take the weights down. So we have to establish the proper technique on all the lifts that's repeatable. And when you add weight over time, you hold yourself accountable to that form so you know that you actually progressed. Too many guys start out squatting down to depth, and then as they load weight onto the bar over time, their squats continually get higher. Well, you didn't actually get stronger. You did lift more weight through a smaller range of motion, but you didn't get stronger. So I'm telling you right now, if you have any doubt, or even if you don't have doubt that your form is perfect, you should get that checked, because that's the number one progress killer that I see with new lifters, even more advanced lifters who have been doing it for a long time. Bunch of different cases of fixing a start position on a guy's deadlift who's been stalled out in the upper 300s, and then bam, we have to pull him back. He's mad. We have to pull him back into the 200s, but we progress him up, and pretty soon, 6 to 12 months, he's deadlifting 500, where if we wouldn't have addressed the program, if we wouldn't have let his ego get hit to go down in weight to get his form right, he would have always been stalled, and then he probably would have gone on to some other type of training, complaining that the deadlift is not optimal for back hypertrophy, and I need to go do machines and shit now. So anyway, that is the long-winded version of me saying get your technique locked in tight. Next is starting these lifts at a good beginning point. So if you're a brand new lifter, you need to lift a little bit of weight with perfect form and progress from there. Those are your starting weights. Often guys in my gym that are clients that I'm coaching online, if they're newer, maybe they've been dabbling and now they want help, we'll start their squat with the 45-pound bar, and I'll make them do it for 2 weeks before they get it perfect. And then we start adding weight. And the technical way of finding this is finding a weight that you can do with perfect form that causes a little bit of strain. That's the stress that you're going to get, and then go from there. Now, again, if you're starting more onto, maybe you've been through the NLP and you want to get into more of an intermediate type training plan, it is heavily advised for you to take, if you have 1 rep maxes when you go to start a program, follow Jim Wendler's advice and do 90% of your 1 rep max to calculate any percentages you're going to use. Start on every single program that you ever do from here on out. Start lower than you want to give yourself room to grow into the program. Too many guys set a program up with their ego or their high school 1 rep max, and they get burnt out and they wonder why. Your 1 rep max doesn't matter unless it's fresh, right? So pull that back and start a weight at an appropriate place. Another thing here is committing to a consistent weekly schedule. So a good case of this is with the NLP. You have to commit to 3 days a week of training. Squats, bench, deadlift, squats, press, deadlift, or whatever else, you know how that goes. Too many guys will be like, oh, I want to train 5 days a week, and then they start missing days, And then that blows up the entire program. And you're better off training 2 to 3 days consistently for years than you are going 5 on, 7 off, 5 on, 2 weeks off, 7 days on, you burn out, you go, and then you quit for a while and restart again. So find a sustainable weekly structure and make it an appointment for yourself. Build a garage gym if you have to. If you've got kids, I understand that. If your kids are anything like mine, wake up at the crack of dawn, 5:30, 6 o'clock, toddler's coming downstairs, he is ready to rip. If I've got a busy day lined up, one of my only times to get my training in, whether that's jujitsu or whether that's lifting or running, is doing it at 5 in the morning or 4:30 in the morning. So have a garage gym in place for you to do that. If you have a commute, it's really hard, it's really easy to make excuses not to go. For me, I'm pretty lucky in that my facility right here borders the jujitsu gym. So 2 of my extracurricular activities I can do where I work also, which is really easy. So logistics is key there. If you have a 30-minute drive to any gym, you're probably not going to train consistently for a long period of time unless you're like a single college bro whose idea of busy is a couple college classes in the morning and then playing grab ass with the college girls on the weekends, right? If you're busy and you've got responsibilities, get a home gym, train somewhere accessible, and lock in on a few days a week that you can train. A lot of guys, if you're working during the week, a lot of guys will train on Saturday, Sunday morning, bright and early, and then fit the other 2 days in on one of their non-busy days during the week. You have to figure out what that structure is going to be and keep it in place and make it an appointment. All of those things that we just discussed leads into how does the programming actually work? Once you got your form locked in, once you got the days that you can commit to, once you have established appropriate starting weights, then the first step in your progression to getting strong is running the starting strength NLP. And what you're going to get out of this varies person to person. If you're a 60-year-old dude, your NLP might last 2 months, and it's going to start really low, and it's not going to take you very far. If you're the 22-year-old college bro raging with testosterone who is willing to eat and gain a bunch of body weight, your NLP might last 9 months before having to actually switch into a full-blooded Texas method, right? But that is step one, establishing that baseline of strength and getting into that novice programming of you adding weight every single session and stressing yourself and recovering from it between sessions. And the thing about this, people mess this up by not following the stages of the NLP properly. So they try to deadlift perpetually 3 times a week, or they try to add 5 pounds to their squat too long without adding a light day or a medium day. They try to bench and press without doing top sets and back offs or working to the heavy singles or anything like that. So I encourage you to work through those phases on the NLP faster than you want. I make those changes with my clients sooner, often than they like, because again, ultimately, yes, I want them to get strong, but ultimately, I want them to stay in the game and get progress. So if they shut their NLP down a month before, maybe they could have, but it was going to be borderline from a recovery burnout perspective, that is totally worth them switching into more sustainable intermediate training, because that's going to keep them in the game, keep them from burning out and quitting, right? So again, make those changes fast. As soon as you start feeling real fatigued and those squats start feeling heavy, add that light day. Very quickly, with your deadlifts, within 2 to 3 weeks, you should be power cleaning between your deadlift sessions. A couple weeks after that, you should be power cleaning and doing chin-ups right after that. And if you don't want to do power cleans, whatever, do light deadlifts at 70% for 2 to 3 sets of 5. Move them fast. That's kind of the way to do that. I'm not going to argue with people about that anymore. I do think everybody should try power cleans, but at this point, oftentimes power cleans cause more problems and people value their time and their efficiency, and lighter deadlifts is going to do that for you if you don't want or you can't for some reason learn how to power clean. So move through those stages faster than you want on the NLP. Most people land in the 2 to 6 month mark for their NLP. If you have been doing starting strength for 3 years, you are not doing the program. So make sure also, when you're thinking about running the initial NLP, that you are operating each lift independently from each other. This is key. This is one of the most important things to running it properly, is not moving on your programming just because for everything just because one lift is starting to stall and needs a change. A good example of this is your squats. You have done the 3 times a week adding 5 pounds, then you've added a light day, then you've added the top sets and back offs, then you've done the heavy, light, medium, where you're setting the PR once a week. Meanwhile, that's happening and it's running out. Your deadlift, you're still making the 5-pound weekly jumps. Now, if you need to start getting into 2 to 3 week variation cycle on your squats, that doesn't mean you should stop trying to add 5 pounds a week to your deadlift. Or just because you add a light day to your squat doesn't mean you need to add the light day to your deadlifts immediately. Same thing with the pressing and the bench. Just because you get into heavy, light, medium, or a light day on the press doesn't mean you need to make any change on the squats, doesn't mean you need to make any changes to your squats, to your bench and your pressing if those are still going up and you're still making incremental jumps. Okay. So the big thing there on the upper body lifts is not having the ego of only using 5-pound jumps. Huge progress can be made with 2.5 and 1 pound jumps on the bench and the press. So, for instance, you get to a 190 bench and it's balls to the wall, and then you do 192.5 and it's also balls to the wall. You do 195 and you barely make it. Well, then instead of trying to go to 197, next time you bench, go to 196. That allows time to adapt before you do it again. You do 199. I've literally had people draw that on out for weeks and make another 10, 15, 20 pounds worth of 1 pound jump progressions or more on their bench and press. So ignore all the people that say men should never do less than 5-pound jumps. Take those 1.25s and piss off. 1 pound jumps are for pussies. No, well, do you want to get stronger or not? Or do you want to listen to dumb meat roid heads? Your call. So make those appropriate jumps. Work each of those lifts independently from each other. Now, as you progress through these, your squats go to heavy, light, medium, and then you do a 3-week cycle. Your deadlift, you finally stall the weekly 5-pound jumps. It's not working anymore. Your bench and your press, you've had to go to the Texas method type where you're doing triples on the bench, running it down. You're doing heavy singles on the press, alternating, running it down. You get to this point where they all start fizzling out. And it is time, you probably are feeling burnt out at this point. And as a coach, I want to see somebody struggling here. I want to see them grinding. I want to see them really getting after it. I want to see some missed reps here. I want to see them really getting to a reasonable limit, because I think it's valuable to get yourself down, and not down in the dumps, but get to a point where you are really having to fight and scrap for everything, because it's a great learning lesson for your training long term. So this is one of the most difficult times towards the late stage NLP, where you're trying to add weight. Things are getting hard, things are getting heavy. Every time you're getting in the bar under your squats on Monday, you're scared because it's heavier than it was last week, right? And this is a valuable time for you to learn how to grind under the bar. Then what do you do when all that fizzles out? Now, the gray book has a bunch of different options: Texas method, light, medium. Again, this is case by case dependent. If you're that aggressive type who's wanting to maximize their strength potential, you're younger, you're willing to gain a bunch of body weight, continue on with the Texas method, which is essentially kind of a heavy, light, medium approach. And that Texas method allows you to go on a weekly stress where you're hitting volume, you're hitting a light day, and you're hitting an intensity day on your squats. Heavy deadlifts are still going. Same thing on the press and the bench. And it's a great way to get really strong. Again, that is a point where those sessions start taking a long time. 1.5 hours, 2 hours. That's not feasible for everybody, right? So that's where things like a more simple heavy, light, medium structure makes a ton of sense if you're sticking to the 3 days. So you'll have a volume squat day at the beginning of the week with a heavy bench day. Or you could do a volume bench day and then some accessory work. On Wednesday, you come in and you hit your overhead press and you hit your heavy deadlifts, 5 to 10 hard reps, some type of structure there. And then on Friday, you have a lighter squat and your volume or intensity bench, and then some accessory work. And then you can flip-flop the next week and have volume press, lighter bench, intensity press. And then you have a 2-week cycle there that works really great. You can start rep cycling there. That's where things like Andy Baker, shout out, 852 is awesome. You can run a 5-3-1 type structure to be cycling on an every 3-week basis. There's a ton of different ways to skin the cat there, but getting into a 3 times a week training framework where you're still hitting the main barbell lifts, but now you have some room to adapt your program, put some accessory work in there that you need, start attacking chins, start attacking row variations, start attacking your power cleans and things like that. That 3-day-a-week structure works really great. And there's multiple different ways to skin a cat. But basically, what happens is it turns into heavy, light, medium. And for a while, you can make weekly progress on your lifts, like your intensity, your heavy squats, which you can set the 5-rep PRs there. You can be doing that again with the deadlifts. And then you can start cycling on a week-to-week basis. And you can think in terms of heavy, light, medium, or the Texas method over the course of multiple weeks. So a lot of my lifters, after that linear weekly progress, I get them into making progress every 3 weeks with things like 852 and 531. And then we might expand that out to 6 or 7 weeks where we're wave loading, where we have higher volume and then we take it easy for a couple weeks and then we go heavy, or we cycle down and go from volume-based work down to intensity-based work over the course of 6-7 weeks. So anyway, the stress recovery adaptation starts happening over 6 or 7 weeks. And that works very well if you're consistent with training and you can plan with it over time. So again, the second way to do this is go into an upper-lower type split where you're doing a squat, where you're doing a intensity day for all 4 lifts and then a volume day for all 4 lifts. Common way of doing it is intensity bench, volume press, day 1, intensity squat, volume deadlift, day 2, intensity press, volume bench, day 3, and intensity deadlift, volume squat, day 4. And again, a very sustainable training framework that you can make weekly progress on when you first switch to it. Then you can make progress every 2 to 3 weeks. And then you can make progress every 6, 7, 8 weeks and expand that stress recovery adaptation cycle out so you can still be setting regular PRs. So the biggest thing here is just making sure that you adapt this to what is reasonable for you. So if you're younger and you can take 2 hours to train, have at the Texas method. If you're a 45-year-old dad of 3 kids in travel sports that owns a business, you probably need to keep your training sessions under an hour 3 times a week. That's where that heavy, light, medium structure, that framework works really well there. And then just being okay with the expectation of maybe your strength progress is going to take a little bit longer of time. But remember, the whole system in play here needs to take into account all those things, your responsibilities, your extracurriculars. I got a bunch of golfers. I got a bunch of hunters. I got guys that play hockey. I got guys that do jujitsu. I got guys that do endurance running and swimming and all sorts of stuff. And then they also have vacations and stressful seasons of life. Summer's busy with the kids, right? So you have to start thinking seasonally on your progress there too. Maybe in the summer when you're busy, you only train twice a week. Then in the winter, when you got more time, you do 3 or 4 days a week and you can start building up and then maintaining or focusing on other activities. But you also have to get to a point where I think that one of the beauties of the starting strength NLP and also one of the downfalls is you get addicted to that linear progress up front and you expect that all the time. But people that have been training for a long time kind of start thinking about things seasonally. You go through long periods where you just try to maintain your strength and you keep your training up, maybe set PRs when you can, but then there's other times when you can be more aggressive. I'll use myself as an example. Spring, summer, fall, I go through quite a big period there of, in the spring, I've been running the last few summers a lot. I maintain jujitsu, But in the summer, I'm maintaining my lifting, I'm pushing my running, I am doing jujitsu just because that's a baseline thing that I do. In the winter, I push the jujitsu a little bit harder and I push the lifting a little bit harder. The running takes a back seat, right? And there's different ways to do that based on what your goal is, but have that expectation that at some point within your training, you're going to have to go through a period where you need to fight to maintain your strength versus just quitting altogether and then trying to re-ramp up. Get in 2 to 3 days a week, hit some hard sets of 5 on your lifts, get out, right? So you have to have that expectation that at some point life is going to get in the way, but you're a person that trains. It's part of your life. It is like brushing your teeth. And if you have the right system in play, then you can do that. So again, remember, we want to get measurably stronger over a long period of time. And if you've been training for multiple years and you haven't ever done that, you've kept restarting and going, it would behoove you to get into a system like this and run it the way it's supposed to be ran and find a way that makes it work for you, okay? So again, start with simple barbell training executed properly. Run the training programming based on your level of training advancement. And then once you get into longer term training, you have to find something that is sustainable, that you can do consistently, that you can also see some steady progress, that you can also adapt to your life. And that is what your personal strength system, thanks ChatGPT, should look like. Talk with you guys next time.